and welcome to this podcast. I'm Laura May, one of the engagement managers at Rail Forum. I'm delighted to have Richard Clinnick here, who's editor of Modern Railways, to come and talk to us about mental health in general, his journey as part of Rail Safety Week. As we know, this is a week dedicated to talking about safety, raising awareness of safety across the industry, and also trying to educate younger people on the dangers and all things rail safety. Richard, you've always been very open about your mental health journey. Can you share a bit with us about why it's so important to speak up, what's happened, and just a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed, as it were, November 2018. Doctor reckoned probably had it for about a year before. And I'm quite open about it. A few years prior, I was really dismissive. I thought it was one of those things. Someone once said something to me about having it before it was well known, and my reaction, they said they were in a dark place, and my reaction was turn a light on, which is just so bad. But I didn't think there was anything wrong, but my wife noticed things. And then she came home one night, it was Halloween, so that's when it was, and the lights were off at home. I'd had a bad day at work, lights are off, and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I didn't know, but I just knew there was something. So you do the NHS test, and I think it's out of 30, and I got 21, so I did well on a test for once, sadly. Went to the doctors next day, got diagnosed, and when you hear it, like, wow, it's the first thing you hear when you hear mental health or depression is, am I going to do something stupid? What else you realise quickly is that it's really bad. It is really bad. It's an illness. I don't think people realise that it is an illness. I don't think at the time, even then, people really knew about it. It was out there, but you don't get the support, and you feel very isolated, you feel very worried. And until you can start to manage it, it's horrible. And only I think, it was a horrible time. But what you also then learn is who you can rely on, who's there for you, what you need, how you learn it. You've got to take anything you're offered, well-being, anything like that, go and do it. And then, it's hard because it never goes either. So it's always there. You can be having a brilliant day. You could be on holiday. You could be getting married. You could be playing football with your pals. You could be whatever, and suddenly something happens, and you can't. Once you learn to manage it, say it doesn't go away. Once you learn to manage it, it gets better. But until you get to that point, I'd like to think I'm there, but not sure yet.
In terms of your journey to recovery, what sort of interventions have you kind of experienced?
So, first off, when you see the doctor, they offer me sertraline, and I know people who are on that who can't get off it, and it was a controversial one. It takes about 3 weeks to get used to it, and then they, depending on how bad you are, they move you up, and then if they can take you off, eventually they do. Coming off it, I always found it a lot harder. Every time they change the dosage. So you had that. Where I was working at the time, they sorted out a employee assistance program, and they sent me to a lady who was near me. She was very good. She gave me some info, such as the mentality and how you're thinking, and sort of why you are like you are. And the fact it's not something you develop, it's not something you catch, it's nothing like that. It's just the way that you are set up. And I always say, and I can't remember their names now, but eventually I got to the NHS wellbeing, and they gave me two people they were just amazing. They were just like angels. They were. I think one was called Megan, but I can't remember the other one. So one was, she did a weekly call, and a lot of this was, I think, during COVID, when we were all learning Teams. So she would help you and give you treatment, and she would send you booklets and all that kind of stuff. And the other one was someone who suffered, and she was suffering there and then, but she was like your guide, like your hand, almost like holding your hand, and she was there, so she'd ring you to check in how you were. But whereas the first one was giving you the brochures and booklets and explaining things almost like a doctor, the other one you could sit and ask questions because she'd been through it. So it'd be like, well, I felt like this today. Is that? She's like, yeah, it's normal. Like, how do you deal with it? And that, I think if I didn't have those two, I don't think I'd have been able to recover as quickly as I have. At least I hope I have. Maybe ask my wife if I have. But yeah, I think so. Stuff like that was good. Then it's also about just talking. And I'm a big believer in talking. I got told to be quiet. I got told it could look bad. I got told it do it privately, through a different account than that was online. I'm like, no, because I didn't know what was going on, and there's so many people were following me, which I found weird. But there were so many people following me, and some of them were saying, "Have you tried this? Have you done this?" But other people were saying like, "Oh no, thank you, because you're being really open." And I'm like, I'm not doing anything differently, because look, I'm a journalist. My whole job and career is like tell people everything. So it's second nature to me anyway. But just get it out there. I wanted at the time, and I don't know whether it was right, I didn't want people to have rumours that, oh, there's something up. Like, nah, just be honest. I'm poorly. And that's what it is. You're poorly. It's going to affect you. It's not, oh, you've got this and a little bit of therapy and it's gone. No, it doesn't. It's always with you. It's there until the day you die, and it's how you manage it. And if you're having a bad day, or if you're grumpy, God knows I can be grumpy, but if you're grumpy, people might understand it a bit more. So I was also thinking that. And then, yeah, I just think you need to speak. And it could be anyone. I still find it hard to talk to my wife sometimes, but I can open up to mates, and I've got like two or three who were there for me the entire time, who, yeah, I just adore for that, because they've had to put up with some absolute rubbish from me. But yeah, if you can get a good support network as well.
Brilliant. You touched on quite a different and varied journey there in terms of medication, in terms of information, but really connecting and reconnecting with network has been really, important for you. If we bring it back to the rail industry, do you feel like there are any unique kind of situations you can find yourself in rail? Do you feel like it's more risky to have people, that don't feel like they can speak up and kind of suffer in silence within the rail industry?
I can only go from me, and I think that if you're having a bad day, so like I said, but just having mental health doesn't mean that you're looking to kill yourself all the time. It really doesn't, and I think that's a myth that needs to be got rid of, because yes, it's the biggest killer of men under a certain age, but so many more people have it. So many, all genders deal with it. Men's a high profile one, and to have a cloudy day, a foggy day where you're not quite right, well, if you're in a high pressured role and you're not feeling it, look, from a hard-nosed business point of view, if you've got one or two people not at it, that's going to be a problem. Safety, if you've got one or two people not at it, that'll be a problem. And it's about how you identify and support those people. So if they are dealing with it long term, and they've either come to the company, or one of the colleagues has gone, have you seen Laura? She's not quite right at the moment. And then they have a word, then that can be dealt with, hopefully, and it can be dealt with the right way, so that they're back to the person they were, the ability that they've got, the fact that there's no pressure on them. Because sometimes it could just be, there's pressure on someone, or they're taking on too much, and I think that can worry people too. And there's a lot of times probably just worry. It's getting to them. Because you don't know what's going on at home, you don't know their worries about work, you don't know if there's finances, there could be all kinds of reasons. And if you just can notice that and help them, I think then they'll perform better, they'll feel better, they'll be a better teammate, a better colleague, a better friend, and they'll also be able to spot it with other people as well, probably. So yeah, I think it's definitely got its challenges in the sector, and not just rail, everywhere.
Can you see any changes in the time that sort of this has been a big topic for you and the things that you've been going through? Do you feel like there's been an improvement in the awareness of mental health? Do you feel like people talk more, or do you think there's lots of work to do there?
You've always got to do more work. Look, being a journalist makes you skeptical anyway. So I'm quite skeptical sometimes when you see companies shouting, like when you get Mental Health Week, when you get Mental Health Day. I mean, the worst thing in the world. And thankfully, people have woken up to it as Blue Monday. But I'm wary that there are some companies who truly believe in it. There are some companies who back their staff no matter what. But I'm also conscious that some just see it as a box tick and see it to make them look good. And I think that needs to be called out more. And I've tried it before. People who, we're doing this and this. Yeah, but what are you doing the other 51 weeks? What are you doing the other 364 days? Why aren't you supporting more initiatives? It's great that this is being done, but why aren't these companies there all the time? And that worries me a little bit. I think it's, as I said, if you'd have asked me 15 years ago, I'd have scoffed at the thought of it. But the fact that I've suffered it and I was aware of it before, but not to the extent, I think shows it's changing. I still think there's so much more we can do. How we do that, I don't know. I'm worried that mental health seems to be as well something that people use as an excuse for things as well. At times you see it like, oh, this happened, oh, this person's got mental health problems. That doesn't help. So if you're not yet able to come out and say, oh, I've got this problem, or I think I don't feel right, or I've got this, and you see in the news that someone did something horrific, oh, they've got mental health problems, you'll think, well, I'm going to be tarred with that brush. They're going to think I'm like that. They're going to think I'm going to do this. We've got to change that. I think the language as well. I've highlighted it in the past where it was a simple thing. I was going to the football one day, and there was a guy, and it was after I'd been diagnosed, and there was a guy, bless him, he was raising money for charity. He had a bucket outside Norwich's ground, and he made reference to the Ipswich manager at the time, and he insinuated that guy had mental problems because he was managing Ipswich. And I complained to the club, and I was like, that ain't right, because a few years before I'd have probably laughed, which just makes me an idiot. But I thought, well, he's saying that, and he doesn't mean what he was saying, but it's just, you're putting it out there, like, you've got mental problems if you're doing this. And the club were a little bit like, I had to explain to them why I was annoyed by it, and eventually understood. But yeah, so it's just things like that. I think people need to be a bit more careful as well. You see stuff online still, you see companies still using language that I don't think works. And yeah, it's better than it was, but there's a long way to go.
You talked a little bit about kind of from a policy perspective in a company, and how real and focused are these companies on mental health. But if we put our lens on the employee, what can we all do to be there, be better, try and create a space, safe environment for people to open up if they are struggling?
This will sound incredibly contradictory, I think you need to give them support without making a fuss. Because I think I wanted all the support in the world, but I didn't want any help. So I wanted to be with people all the time, but I wanted to be with everyone, but I wanted to be alone. And that's a really hard thing, I imagine, for an employer to do. It's like, how do you help this person who almost doesn't want to be helped? And I think that'll happen a lot because you feel like a burden. Well, I certainly did. Like, hang on a minute, I want to go and do this. No, you can't do it. I want to go and speak to these people. No, you can't do it. And you're like, okay, or we're going to do this. Oh, I don't feel right. Can I go over there? I used to do that in the office. I'd be like, yeah, I don't feel well. I'm going to go over there because those people are annoying me. And at the time, it was helping me. I look back and I think, did it help or did it just make you more of a pariah? Which is the last thing you really want. I think the quicker a colleague can notice that there's something up with someone, because you get to know, if you've worked with someone for a few weeks, a few months, you probably don't know, but if you've worked with them for a couple of years and you think they don't seem themselves. I always found if someone went, are you all right? Is there anything wrong? You're not going to answer normally. So it's about how you chat to them and then see eventually what happens. I think if you just go, you're right, yeah, I'm fine. And that's what you're getting. My wife does it now. You're right, yeah, I'm fine. So she knows now to go at me a little differently. And I think if you just see that you can see if someone's struggling. Even if they don't know they're struggling, you can see it. And I think it's about that. And if you don't feel that you can go up to them and go, look, do you want a drink? Do you want coffee or something like that? Maybe have a word with your boss, or maybe have a word with HR or something, or see if there's something you can do. And just say, I'm worried about Laura. There's something, she's not herself or whatever. I think probably companies are more open to that these days. And I think if you'd have tried it 10 years ago, they'd have been like, I'm not so sure now. I think because of the awareness, but then it's how you deal with it. And I still think there's a lot of work to be done on how you can deal with it. I just think we need to learn more.
I think the acknowledgement that things are improving, whether it's quick enough, whether it's widespread enough, whether the safe space is there in everywhere that it needs to be. But I do think, what's come out strong in what you're talking about today is that connection piece. If you are present and connecting and listening for kind of the unsaid, I guess in a lot of cases that can really help people.
We play football 7-a-side, and there's like a core group of us, and quite a few of us have got various ailments, and but you can tell, and so you can tell if something's important to someone as well. So be it like, don't know whether you hear it, I doubt it, bless him, but there's like one of our guys, he admits that he struggles a little bit like being alone at home. And so I know that there are some things that mean a lot to him. The worst thing I find is if you're alone, because then you start getting thoughts that you don't want. And the biggest problem to anything like that is, I think, it comes back to the management, is how you get rid of those invasive thoughts. And it can't be like, right, go and find a knife, go and find pills. It's nothing like that. That's what maybe TV makes you think. But it's just things like finding a problem with something, and the next thing you know, you're down a rabbit hole of like, ugh, or yeah. And I think it's about trying to identify that, seeing if someone's struggling, and then go, come on, or should we go do this?
Okay, so in summary, what would be one piece of advice or encouragement that you would give to somebody who's struggling?
Very hard to say. If someone tells you to shut up, just keep talking, because you're in a situation where you might get, well, if I carry on talking, I'll get fired, or something bad will happen to me. I might get overlooked or whatever. And I think there is a fear that, you could be absolutely brilliant at your job, but you could be worried that if you highlight you've got a condition, you'll get overlooked. I still think there's probably that's going on today. So I think speak. One thing on Twitter, because that's where I've been most vocal, that people have pointed out, and I agree with what I've said, you need a network. And some people who are really struggling have gone, well, I haven't got anyone. And I suppose I'm lucky in that I've got supportive family. And increasingly, I've increased my, since I've been playing football, I've increased my sort of friendship circle, as it were. Otherwise, before, I mean, I didn't know, my best mate of over 30 years, I didn't know he'd struggled until he opened up to me randomly because I had it. He'd never mentioned it to me. I'm like, I haven't yet said to him, why didn't you tell me? Because you don't tell someone off for it. And he's very similar to me. It's curiosity. And that's the other thing, is it's curiosity. So his thing was, so there's a bridge in Yarmouth and it goes over this massive great, it's not a reservoir, it's not a broad, I don't quite know what you would describe it. But he said one day he kept looking at this, what happens if I drove off it? Because he was bored. And I'm like, yeah, I've been there. Do you know what? In the railway, I've looked several times. I've looked at something and what happens if I touch that? Well, what happens if, could you jump over that? What happens if you walk down there? You think like that, and it's one of the things that you have. There's so many different things. It's like this curiosity factor. Yeah, talk, speak to people, look for advice as best as you can. Even if you don't think there's something wrong, if you don't feel quite right, just, it's free. There's a check on the NHS website, and it's a questionnaire. Answer it honestly, because we all know you can rig questionnaires to how you want it to be. Do it, fill that in. Worst case scenario is they tell you there's something up and you can get help. Best case scenario, it says you're fine. But if you think there's something wrong, you're probably not fine. But by opening up, by doing that, you'll be better than what the alternative could be. And yeah, you don't want that.
So what's coming through really strong is connecting, building support network, seeking help and validation for how you're feeling, and talk. They are really strong themes coming through what you're talking about today.
Once you've been diagnosed and you've been there, you can see it in others as well. So you can see like someone isn't quite right within themselves. And it still happens. I am sure within the next few weeks, I'm going to have a moment. I call them gremlins. A friend of mine in one of the comms managers, they mentioned to it one day, she called them brain gremlins, I think it was. And so instantly I just created this image. You know the film Gremlins, you know the ones where they talk. So you know the one that's posh with glasses. So I found him as a GIF, and I just look at it now as them. And I think that made it real, as it were. So people go, because I'd never heard Black Dog or anything like that. I'd never heard of that. Why would I? And I made this thing like Gremlins. And I got to a point, I think, where I can speak about it. I was worried about speaking about it. So I just, on social media, I just post a picture of a gremlin, this guy, and people reached out to me. So that was my little way. You find little ways of dealing with it, and that was my one. So, yeah, I don't even know the guy. I don't even know the creature's name, but that's the way I made a thing of it. And so that's like my wife. If I'm sat there like looking even more glassy-eyed than normal, she'll be like, "You got gremlins?" I'm like, yeah. And then she just knows either leave me be, bad idea, annoy me somehow so that I'm out of that, go out, watch telly, do something, just anything, take your mind off it. And that goes back again to you've communicated. It might be the most bizarre way of doing it, and not everyone can do it, but that's what I did. And it became well known, Gremlins. And yeah, just because by having that thing that's real, the NHS lady said, "Oh, you see like clouds coming in." I'm like, no, I just see this green little critter that's got a very posh voice.
Really interesting. Thank you so much. I just want to, really commend you for your honesty and your openness to talk about a topic that, you know, is really close to your heart.
One thing I did forget, so one thing I did is like the support networks that are out there. So I mentioned like friends and that, but there are groups and there are like charities and societies and all that. And one thing that's disappointed me a little bit, so it's certain people know, and I know you know, so I'm a Norwich fan, and the Canaries Trust has this mental health page, and I used to look at that, and I now do stuff for that page, and they've invited me onto the trust board as a result of the work I do with that, because what I saw is they were very much, it's called Canaries, but it didn't feel, and it's not aimed at Norwich fans, it's aimed at everybody. And what I found was that they were, it was weird, like they were posting things that like I recognised, and I would point people and say, look, go and listen to them, because they seem to know what they're on about. And when I joined them, I found that they're the same as me. They've suffered, they've been there, they've got harrowing stories. So they knew what they were on about. And I think that's helpful. I think that when I go back to you here, when you said about companies, I think companies go, we support mental health. Yeah, you might support it, but you might not understand it. Whereas something like the Canaries did. So to be able to see that goes back to, you can tell when someone's dealt with it. And I think things like that, and you know, there's other charities out there as well who know how you're feeling, how to stop it, how to support you, how to send you into the right place. I mean, I'm not going to name them. When you see phone numbers for charities, and one of them I just couldn't get through, and like you're in a really bad place, and you see, oh, ring this number and they'll be there for you, and they weren't. But there are others who were. So yeah, and I think that's another problem. Where's the money for something like this? Things like that need help. You know, you're ringing a helpline, there's no one there. Oh, if you've got to talk to, everyone's out. You can't worry your mum, because your mum's worried about you enough as it is. Your wife's at work, your best friend's at work. You're isolated, this person on the phone, and that number's not there, it's not working. So there's so many, to be able to see something like the Canaries were doing, really helped, I think. So I mean, when they offered me, like, do you want to help with us? I'm like, yeah, because I do 2 days a week. It's just like Twitter and that. But the idea that you can also help someone who's been there, who just needs that little boost, I think is also really good, because until we get the support everyone needs, things like that are really, really crucial.
Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. We will include some resources to signpost listeners. If they need any support or you've been triggered by anything you've listened to today, you can use some of the links that we'll include. And just, reinforce the messages that Richard's shared with us. You know, talk, listen, take care of each other, and ask those questions. Because, you know, it's you that are close to people that will recognise those differences in people. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast as part of Rail Safety Week, and we hope you have a good day.